Welcome back to the Neo Marketing Podcast. This is the new decade, the new year, and today I'm going to share some of my favorite podcasts from 2019.
Welcome to the Golden Group Neo Marketing Podcast, a bi-weekly discussion of modern business communication.
Happy New Year, Kyle.
Well, same to you, Pritch.
Thanks,
Good to see
man.
you.
It's better to be seen than viewed, I always say.
And every time you say it, I'm like, that makes sense.
Well, at my age, you have to pay attention to that stuff. It was fun when you challenged me to come up with my top 4 or 5 podcasts from 2019. It was a fun kind of walk through memory lane kind of thing. Yeah. It's interesting. I sensed the theme, and I think you all will too when I'm done.
I accidentally had a theme last week too. I hope your theme is different than mine because my theme was yelling at people.
Right.
That made me mad. So.
Well, it's related to yelling,
okay.
But yeah. So this is kind of in order. One of my favorites was on tone deafness. It was a podcast we did in Washington, D.C.
Yes, from the hotel room
of
the Wink Hotel, yes.
Yep, exactly. Working on some client work there in D.C.
Right.
And so we took some time to do a podcast. And the one I did at the time was tone deafness, how to avoid that. And your suggestion was every staff needed a 12-year-old boy. I agree.
Right. They will snicker at any joke or innuendo that you accidentally create in your marketing copy.
Right.
And then you immediately replace it.
Yep. And the impetus for that was fashion houses had 3 times in a couple of weeks done something pretty heinous.
Right.
So, and so the advice we offered, pretty practical, but one is be aware of what's going on around you, right?
And that awareness comes from slowing down.
And that's the second thing, is slowing down. Yeah. Absolutely. And then, like good writing, the third thing is set it aside for a little while.
Yes. And multiple sets of eyes.
And multiple sets of eyes,
yes.
Number 4.
If you think it's brilliant, someone else might realize that it's,
right.
Whether it's good or effective or on message or just, oh my God, you realize that this line, this actually really, says this.
And some
you realize that term means that,
Some of the things we saw, it wouldn't have taken, a nanosecond to figure out how wrong they were.
And I think the last aspect of that too, a lot of the mistakes that those people were making were, like you said, everyone should have caught it. Everyone in the chain of command, from the most basic entry-level person through the CEO of the company, should have been like, oh my God, how did we let this out?
Right.
Obviously, a lot of people did notice that they just didn't have the nerve to run it up the flagpole with, we shouldn't do this.
Yeah, we shouldn't do this.
They're afraid of pushback or whatever it was. Right. And so corporate culture, being able to communicate with each other and go, hey, I don't think this is a good idea, and have that conversation can avoid some public embarrassment.
And as the PR person, it's real easy to throw the PR person under the bus. We did not do that, but it's a reminder to the PR person to have the guts to say no.
They're the ultimate purveyor of we shouldn't do this because they'll be the person in front of the cameras trying to explain why no one said you shouldn't do this.
Exactly so. Number 4 on my hit list was addressing rumors in the digital age.
Certainly.
That was back in May.
And we've referenced that one many times since then as well.
I think so, absolutely. And I've reached back into 2018 because in November we talked about crisis communication time and response. And that's when I put the gauntlet down and said, unequivocally, regardless of the speed of social media, 1 hour is the time frame.
You need a response within an hour, but don't panic before that first hour.
No, not at all. An hour gives you time for your advocates to jump in.
Yeah.
Right? It's still relevant. The timing is still relevant. And you get enough of an opportunity to gather enough facts that you're still you're credible.
Yeah.
Right? So that plays into what we talked about in terms of handling rumors on social media. Mm-hmm. And same thing. The haters are going to come out first, right?
Yes, they are.
The cancel culture. I'm learning a whole lot about that here recently. But you have
I'm sure your students at OU know all about cancel culture, don't they?
Cancel culture, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's a topic of discussion in my crisis communications class. So, but it's, you just have to wait for your advocates to come on board to defend you. And if you're a company worth defending, they will come.
Yeah.
to the party, if you will, right? And then that also gives you an opportunity to pick up some nuances in their defenses that you can use in your official statement.
Yeah.
So, don't panic.
And at the end of the day, crisis response, sometimes your response makes things worse.
If you don't do it right.
Some things it puts everything back to where you started.
Yep.
And then sometimes there's an opportunity to create an even better impression of your brand if you do it really well.
Yeah, I'm a weird guy. I think that there is opportunity
I do
inside
too,
of
absolutely.
crisis. And so if you're smart at what you're doing
Right.
and you pay attention, then you can seize that opportunity.
For sure.
So that's 4 and 3. Number 2, it was a 2-parter. And it was right after we had a conversation with the YMCA chief marketing officers here in Oklahoma City.
They
had
the
their
CMO conference,
national conference.
That was fun.
It was great. But then we did 2 sessions on protocols.
Yes.
The plan is dead.
That's right.
I don't even want a moment of silence.
Oh.
Nope. The plan is dead. Protocol, which outlines lanes, outlines who's responsible for what information. It's process oriented. It's not it's not what you respond with, but how you respond.
And it's empowering.
It is.
It allows employees to do what they do because they've been empowered by the protocol.
And they know what their lane is.
Yeah.
They know what they're responsible for. Right?
Sure.
And bonus, it also helps you figure out where you need to train.
Yes. And those 2 episodes, not only did we have enough conversation for 2 episodes, so we really we dove deep into the hour-long presentation we did for the YMCA CMO conference, but we also have links. They'll be in the links to this description, and they're on that episode. When you go and listen to the episode or watch it on YouTube, the links to the actual presentation that we did in all of its glory.
Happy to share of that with you guys, because that's what we're all about.
That's what we do.
Right. And my number 1 favorite was fairly recent, and that was The Apology Impulse.
Yes.
Yes. I had just come across that book, and it makes a lot of sense.
And happy to tell you, your take, your input, your discussion about the points made in the book have been held up by the authors of the book.
Oh, no kidding.
On Twitter.
Oh, dude.
Yes.
All right.
They are big fans of ours now on Twitter because, of course, we reference them when we tag them in our social media posts. It's their book. We wanted to give them the credit for it. It's an amazing book. We were just giving our opinion on the ideas they brought up. Both authors on the book we're now connected to them on Twitter.
Sweet.
They retweeted. They gave a reference. The example you gave of the bigot gate.
Yes.
Because when you add gate at the end of it, it becomes a scandal.
It becomes a scandal.
Where was one they particularly thought they were really impressed with your take on that.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. I've been so busy trying to get the semester wrapped up, I haven't been paying attention.
The end of the year is a rough one for Pritch, but we got some great feedback from our audience. It's people who typically chime in on our content, but the authors of the book did as well and gave us our good graces that we were reading it correctly.
Justice.
Yes.
All right, cool. Well, that's awesome because it is a paradigm shift that I think needs to happen.
Yes.
And
We've gone too far down this path of apologize. And you're right. It's got to be a 180. It's got to be a paradigm shift. It's got to be a radical no more to get us back to where.
Don't jump in and apologize unless you did something really wrong.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
And the subtitle of the book kind of says it all, how the business world destroyed I'm sorry, and why we can't keep from saying it.
There it is.
So
we know we're overdoing it, but we can't stop doing it.
We can't stop it. And sometimes it's like watching a train wreck. You see these people, these companies go, "Oh, we're sorry," right? Or "We didn't get it right," or it just makes my skin crawl. So it definitely has shaped the way I'm going to approach my crisis comm class.
One of my favorite people the podcast I listen to is Gary Vee, Gary Vaynerchuk, right? Gary said forever that marketing professionals, marketing people, they ruin all the best things. And so, when
so it's social media managers
when
Facebook
Facebook was brand new, this is cool. Here comes the marketers, Twitter and Instagram, and now they've driven all these platforms into the ground, and pretty soon TikTok is the new thing now. Marketers will weasel their way into that.
Right.
And I think the apology reaction, the overreaction to apologizing, is coming from the marketing department. Is coming from please don't offend affect sales and kill this brand that we've built. And so I think the marketing people are the ones who've ruined I'm Sorry.
Yeah. I think so. But I think it's an absolutely essential book
Yes.
for public relations, especially a crisis communicator
Absolutely,
to read.
yes. Change that mindset.
Change the mindset.
And then be able to argue the reason that you change your mindset back to the CEO and everyone else in the C-suite
Right.
who's going to demand the apology
Right.
so that you can it's not enough to change the marketing and PR people. You got to change everyone in the business.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Especially leadership.
Welcome to my business as a public relations
Yes.
person. I've been an educator my entire career.
Right.
Just trying to get people to understand, right, the senior leadership.
And that's what we do on this podcast too, is we try to people understand
Try to.
different mindsets and different input and different ways of looking at things. There's no single answer to any problem.
Right.
And every approach is different depending on who you are, what you've done, all those factors, right?
But there are some guidelines that you can lean on.
Yeah,
right?
and if you understand decision making and process
Right.
and protocol,
Right.
then getting to do we do X or Y is much easier
Much easier.
and much easier to sleep with when you actually commit to it.
Right. And
Or argue to the boss about.
isn't it nice to just be able to say, we did this and not apologize?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If too many times. The book is full of great
It's
references.
a lot of great
A lot of
references,
great
yes.
references. So that's my favorite one.
Very good.
For 2019.
I like that.
There you go.
I like all of those.
Yeah.
And in fact, we also last episode, I gave I say top 5. It was really almost 10 because I put like 4 into one subject and some other stuff.
That's okay. I
Then
wasn't counting.
I also gave the late Christmas gift of some other podcasts I wanted to. So I have a couple
There
more.
are
I have
a
a couple
couple
more
more.
podcasts I want to tell people that are not our podcast. They're podcasts we're associated with, but not this one. But if you like this podcast, if you like the Starting One Hustle, my podcast,
Right.
you're absolutely going to love Major Ed Polito, the Warrior for Freedom podcast.
There you go.
Major Ed is an amazing person. I've known Ed for a long time. I think around 20 years now. Ed is an Iraq veteran.
Yep.
Who lost a leg in a roadside bomb
Wounded
in
warrior.
Iraq. Right, he is a wounded warrior. He now works for the Folds of Honor. He's the senior VP and one of the co-founders of Folds of Honor. He also has another local group called the Warriors for Freedom, and he's got a book, and he's a motivational speaker. We had him come speak at OBF, right?
OBF.
And
Very
Ed
energetic
is
guy.
an amazing guy, but
is.
he also has amazing opinions on a lot of things. He's working really diligently, not just on support systems for veterans, but businesses for business opportunities and entrepreneurs for veterans.
Right.
That's a project that we're working on with him, and the podcast is part of that. His energy is through the roof.
Yes. I tell you what.
He literally he actually. Now, by the time this podcast happens, it'll be about a year and a half. But he was one of the starters for a race, the Texas 400, I believe it was, where he does the gentleman start your engine, right? Of course, you're on a microphone, but you could hear him through the whole raceway, over the race cars,
I think
with
we
his
heard him in
energy
Oklahoma City.
of how to start your own gentlemen start your engines. And that's one. Go find Major Ed Start Your Engines on YouTube. It's amazing to watch him go. But his podcast. High energy, it's veteran focused, but again, it goes back to, you're a veteran, and thank you for your service, and we want to thank Ed for his service and all the veterans we work with. I'm not a veteran, I'm not someone who served. Obviously, I have a huge amount of respect for the freedoms I gained from the men and women who've all served. But I can listen to Ed talk about just about anything because he's authentically who he is.
Yeah, exactly.
He's unapologetic. He's unafraid to speak, and he's earned that right through his sacrifices, right?
Yep.
And he takes advantage of it. He's a very interesting guy. He talks a lot about a lot of different subjects, and he brings that great realness and energy to everything. And he's positive. He's the most amazingly positive person.
One of the most.
He's taken the lowest aspect of his life, at a point in his life where he didn't know if he would live or die, or even if he wanted to live or die. And he's very frank about that. And when he speaks, and he turned it into a catalyst for positivity, and not just I'm doing things, but he's doing amazing things. So the Major Ed Polito Warrior for Freedom podcast is another one of my favorites. And then a completely opposite take, but very valuable in what she does, As a friend of mine and someone that I do a little bit of podcast production for, is her name is Stacy Johnson. She's an Oklahoma City girl, and her podcast. And I'm not the audience for this one. No, it's called the Girly Bliss Podcast. It's a female empowerment,
Right.
sort of a moms can do it all. It's a little bit entrepreneurial, a little bit own your own business, a little bit of self-center and
Right.
how to be a mom and how to be a wife. And it's scripture based, and so she's also a licensed therapist. So she has a lot of professional credentials, but she also has a lot of things she relies back on biblical scripture and
Right.
a lot of stories from other women that have sort of formed these tribes in their collaborative and
Right.
things of this nature. Again, completely opposite approach than Major Ed.
Right.
We're not the audience for it, but the people who are the audience for it, she has an amazing following. They really appreciate her podcast. And so I've been working with Stacy for a little over a year now on producing that podcast. And I appreciate the space it takes in that spectrum of people looking for different types of podcasts.
Absolutely.
So when you take the Girly Bliss Podcast, the Major Ed Polito, Warrior for Freedom, you go. Last time we talked about the General and the Ambassador, the American Diplomat, and My Saturday Morning Hustle, and this podcast. These are a huge variety of podcasts, and that's what's fun and amazing and interesting. Especially some of these 5 and 10 minute podcasts, like Saturday Morning Hustle, usually 5 to 10 minutes. You can check it out once or twice. 10 minutes, 20 minutes gone. If you didn't like it, no big deal. And also, when you're looking at on iTunes, they give you the suggestions for other podcasts you might want to be interested in. We're going to have all those podcasts listed on our website with links to all of them as well on our website and social media, along with links to all the episodes you mentioned today from the past Neo Marketing podcast, if any of those topics are interested to anyone listening.
There you go. Have a great 2020. Yes. We hope this has been helpful. We want to hear from you.
For sure.
I want to get some pushback. Nobody's arguing with us yet.
I'm all about getting ideas and topics, but if you want to tussle it up a little bit,
exactly.
We'll be respectful. We'll be nice.
Civility.
We might agree with your take. We might disagree. We might just have a discussion on a third rail.
Right. Well, and as my brother and I were talking, where did we stop agreeing to disagree?
Yes.
So we're cool with that.
Disagree without being disagreeable.
Exactly.
Right? We need more debate in the world.
Actually, that's a bonus because we did a podcast in 19 on civility.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. So until next time, ciao.
Good luck.